And good evening, and welcome to the happenings in Medfield. Special guest, a good friend. You've seen him a number of times in two different areas and capacities. Ron has been a guest many times as a Shine counselor and as the town Veterans Service Officer. Veterans Day is near, and so we thought we would focus on veterans issues during this segment. And so without further ado, Ron, Veterans Day is coming up. Can you go over what events will be happening this year?
Certainly, Jack. Hi. Well, on Veterans Day, of course, is going to be Monday, November 11th. And at 5 p.m., we're going to have a brief ceremony like we do every year at Baxter Park. Now, this is open to the public, and everyone's invited. So we really encourage everyone to attend. This is an American Legion Veterans Day program. So it features luminaries by the American Legion Auxiliary. Luminaries that can be purchased for loved ones that you like to remember. So at this time, I know time is short, but if you'd like to purchase a luminary, if you go down to the American Legion Post, there's a little application there. The recommended donation is $6, and then for two it's $10. And they put your loved one's name, wishes on that bag, and they light up the walkway going into Baxter Park. It's very, very pretty. The ceremony itself is fairly brief. It usually lasts maybe 15 minutes. During the ceremony, we remember all those veterans, area veterans of Medfield or have Medfield ties. We remember them all that have passed away during this past year. So as the commander of the American Legion, the commander does give a brief message, and I want to tell folks it's a brief message. You won't be there all night. So if it's cold or wet or rainy, it's not going to be an enduring problem for you. We'll get it over with fast.
Ron, I understand that there is also a breakfast that day for veterans.
Yes, on that day, Monday morning at 8:30, we're going to have a free breakfast at the Senior Center. Now, this is the first time that we've done this, so I'm hoping for a really good turnout. And if we can get the turnout, maybe we can do this every year. Now, I'm coordinating the event as the Veterans Service Officer, but the American Legion is sponsoring the event. And there's a lot of kudos that are going to go not only to the American Legion, but we got a whole bunch of volunteers that are going to be cooking the food and preparing and helping us out. So, there's a lot of people that come forward and say, I want to participate, and saying thank you to the veterans.
So who is invited to the free breakfast?
Well, certainly members of the American Legion Post 110 here in Medfield are invited, as are all Medfield veterans. And I also want to invite all Medfield residents who are widows or widowers of a veteran. And we don't want anyone to come alone. So please bring your spouse, your companion, your friend.
Okay, Ron, so that's every veteran or surviving spouse living in town, each of whom can bring one guest. Will you have enough food?
Well, we hope so. So what we're doing is we have a sign-up sheet at the Senior Center, and we encourage everybody to sign up. It's not required, but certainly that gives us a good idea of who's going to come, how many are going to come, and we can not only prepare enough food and buy enough food, but we can, set up chairs and tables for them to sit at. So to do that, please go to the Senior Center, ask for the sign-up sheet, and for the Veterans Day breakfast, and put your name on it, and if you're going to bring a guest. Also, if you can't get there, do give the senior center a call, and tell them what you want to do, and the lady there will help. She'll go get the list and put your name on the list. And we all know that number, don't we, Jack?
You better believe it.
It's 508-359-3665.
Let me just repeat that. To attend the Veterans Breakfast, go down to the center or give them a call at 508-359-3665 to get your name on the sign-up sheet. Ron, how many veterans and surviving spouses live in Medfield?
Well, every year we do the census, and every year the census asks you to check a box if you're a veteran. So there are 480 boxes that were checked, so it looks like we have about 480 veterans. It's interesting to note that 125 of them are over 80 years old. So a lot of our veterans are elderly. And on the other scale, we've got about 45 veterans that are under the age of 50. So when you come to this breakfast, expect to be around some people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even 90s. And of course, we hope you're going to come to the breakfast, Jack. And, as far as the spouses go, there isn't any way to capture that information. So I have really no idea how many widows or widowers of veterans there might be in town. And I spend a lot of time trying to find them. So there are a few benefits that are available for widows and widowers, and I need them to come forward so that we can see if they're entitled to anything, and I'm sure they'd like it.
Well, they should certainly take advantage of it by calling you as the Veteran Service Officer. Getting back to your Veterans Breakfast, what's for breakfast?
Well, it's going to be pancakes, sausage, bacon, juice, fruit, and of course some coffee. We got quite a few volunteers, as I said, that will be doing the cooking. Some celebrity cooks. So we'll have John Naff, what is he? He's the
I know who you mean.
You know who I mean, you
Yeah.
know what I mean, but I can't remember that he's the building inspector.
Yeah.
So help me with that. And Mike Sullivan is going to be cooking.
He does a tremendous
he
amount
does.
on those pancakes.
And he's got John in training. So and Tony Santori is kind of runs the crew. They do this often in the breakfast every month. They've been doing this, so they've got it down to a really good teamwork that produces them and gets these breakfasts off going well.
Well, really, with all veterans out there, take advantage of the breakfast and bring a guest, because a situation of this nature is something else again. I'm looking forward to going. I told you that earlier.
Yes.
And sit around and you'd be surprised. A lot of stories, a lot of very fine people. How about after breakfast? Is anyone speaking, or do you have any special guests?
Well, yes to both of those questions. Senator Timothy and Representative Denise Garlick will be my guest speakers. They've both been really so wonderful in supporting all the veterans programs that I've been involved in ever since I became the Veteran Service Officer. They've been supporting me, and again, they're going to be there supporting me again. So I've asked them to speak about Massachusetts state legislation. Now, specifically, there's legislation now before the House. It's already passed the Senate, and it's called the Valor Act 2. So I wanted them to touch on that. But pretty much that's my theme for the breakfast, is to focus on state veterans benefits. Most people think the VA is the sole source of veterans benefits, That's really not so true. You know, our state is very progressive in helping veterans, perhaps the most progressive in the country. So I wanted to spotlight on those veterans benefits that are state provided and see if we can interest a couple of people. Maybe they'll be exposed to some benefits that they may be entitled to and just didn't know existed. So, and there might be a guest speaker, but I haven't got firm confirmation yet, so I'm not going to mention who it is.
You know, this sounds good, Ron. I hope you get a good turnout. Let's move on. Are there any other events scheduled for Veterans Day?
Well, not really on Veterans Day, but before Veterans Day. You know, our schools usually all participate in some sort of veterans program. Now, I've had the opportunity of visiting most of the schools in town, and they just have a wonderful, wonderful program for veterans. I'm talking about programs that start in kindergarten in the first grade, where they just talk about the different branches of the services. They, you know, do a little exercise by doing some marching and about faces, and they learn the songs of all the service branches, and that's really what it's all about. And you know, the Wheelock School, the Dale Street School, all have programs. Myself are probably more involved in the middle school, so that's the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And for the 6th grade, we do a veteran visit, where a veteran comes into the classroom and they spend some time speaking to the veteran. The 7th grade, we're trying something new this year, where they're going to do some interviews for veterans. And the 8th grade students, they write letters to area veterans. So there's about 240 8th grade students. So every year about 240 letters go out to Medfield veterans. And again, nobody knows who anybody is. They're, you know, but you know, we keep everybody's privacy intact. But a lot of veterans get letters, and I can tell you that they are just so excited. Many veterans come to me and say they got a letter, and they're just taken away. Especially last year, I did the Vietnam veterans, and you know, a lot of them never heard the words "thank you," so it was really very special for them.
You know, again, Ron, that sounds wonderful. But let's move on to another subject. As you know, we just went through a government shutdown. Do you think there has been any damage to veterans?
Well, we did narrowly miss financial hardship to millions of veterans. You know, on the first of the month, November, veterans compensation and pensions checks would have been delivered. And if the deadlock was not resolved by October 26th, those checks were not going to be sent out. Now, these are checks for veterans with service-connected disabilities. They're widows of veterans. They're those on disability pensions. There are those that are housebound veterans, or veterans requiring aid and attendance. So these are really a very needy population, and you know, so it would have been a financial hardship for them if they did not get their checks, and it would have been hardship for the country. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars, I think, and because there's millions of recipients, and you know, those monies pretty much are used to buy services. So it's money that is not put into a savings account for later. It's money's used for daily living, and you know, so that gets back into the economy right away. So that would have been bad. On the positive side, the VA healthcare system was not in danger or affected, and that's because the budgets for the VA healthcare, they're approved and appropriated a year in advance. So I'm not aware of any services, medical services, that were denied for veterans. But and we also, part of this is you lose time. Where we lost time is everybody knows that every VA application, it just takes so very, very long to get accomplished. So we were way, way behind before the shutdown. And I'm sure we're much more behind than we were before. So how do you measure that? You know, how do you measure a delay that is been 2 years, you know, and now is going to be 2 years and 2 months or something like that? So we have to remember, you know, the VA has been struggling. They're working on 2-year-old applications. 2-year-old applications. That's how long they've been in the system, and they're waiting for a reply to their application for benefits. And, you know, that's just awful. And certainly the shutdown couldn't have helped that.
It's certainly understandable. The shutdown didn't help anybody, anything. I mean, that was my personal observation. Just, I listened to it and I watched it and I thought to myself, come on, these guys better get with it. You know, Ron, while that seems intolerable, can the VA do anything about that?
Well, they're trying to, but the results are very slow in coming, and you know, I'm not seeing anything in the near future. The VA is still a paper society. You know, everything's on paper. So there's paper is lost and paper is misfiled. There's folders everywhere. You know, now they're in process for program development to develop software applications that will make this process into this century of automated. But of course, all those people involved in advancing that technology, you know, they were all on the shutdown and weren't working. So, you know, we lost all the time that they might have had to get a program up to date, and by the time they retune and restart, you know, there's a further delay in wherever that was going to happen. You know, there's now, the VA is also doing efforts that what they're trying to do is get the veteran more involved in the application. Perhaps getting him to do more of the work in the application. And I can't see this as really being very effective either. The application process is really just too confusing. And to be honest, I often worry when I'm doing an application if I am covering all the details, because if I miss some detail, you know, I'm also will be the cause of a delay, and I don't want that responsibility either. So, you know, I've started to worry, and I'm developing checklists and to be sure I cover everything that is needed. So the VA, these forms that I'm talking about, they're called EZ forms, and they put the words EZ at the end, and of course the implication is that they're easy to fill out. And unfortunately, most of the veterans, when they see an EZ form, they want to go right to it. Well, the EZ form can be easy because it's usually shorter in length, asks less questions, but it doesn't help them get anything to prove, because regardless of what the application is, it's all in the proof. So the application may be simple, but they don't spell out all the proof that is needed. And with an EZ application, you only get one chance at providing it. So you provide half of the information, and I'm certain you're going to get denied because they're missing something. And then if you do, if you do send in further information, you know, you say, oh, I forgot to put in my discharge papers. I mean, you have to do that. Oh, I forgot to mail them in. Well, you mail them in and you go to the back of the line. You know, when you're in the 2-year line.
So it makes it difficult.
It makes it very, very difficult.
So if you're going to submit any application to the VA, check with you first.
Yeah, I think it's wise. I don't think any veteran should try to do any VA application on their own. Not that they couldn't do it. It's just that any omission, any slight error, and you're putting yourself in for a further delay, and the delay already is intolerable. So you don't want to be in the 2-year line and not get there for another 5 months.
Makes it difficult.
It does.
You know, actually, it is good to talk to you, Ron, if a situation develops as far as a veteran is concerned. This has a disability, and he feels that that disability is causing a reaction to it again. It's good to talk to your service officer and let him sit down and work it out. And I really agree. See you first before you put your name down on anything.
Right. And we talk about a 2-year delay, but with the applications that I'm doing, especially for service-connected disabilities, I'm expecting results in 100 days. So if you do things correctly, I think you can get your results in 100 days and never get into the two-year-old line. And that's my objective, and that's why I think I need to get involved, to make sure that you don't have some mistake that might be a pitfall.
That's good. You know, Ron, it's also that time of the year when we all get those phone calls and mailings to support veteran charities. What is your current advice to our veterans?
Well, my current advice to our viewers is to hang up or throw it in the trash. I don't think that there's just not enough credible organizations out there reaching out and calling you or mailing you. I walk away, I throw away, and I hang up.
That's the only way. The only way, really, because you get those calls and they're beggars. And actually, when it boils down to it, if you submit money, they're going to get very little of it anyway.
And that's it. You know, I hang up because I don't want to participate in any program that is going to take 85% of my donation just for the privilege of having them call and beg me for the money.
It really doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
You know, that's a pretty harsh reply, don't you think?
Well, I do think it's a harsh reply, but I think it's deserving now. Unfortunately, we've all been patient, you know, and we've all been taken advantage with so much. Now we can't recognize the good folks.
I see your point, and sometimes the question may arise as, who is the good point?
Right.
You know, so you're telling our viewers to stop giving to all veteran charities?
Not at all. Obviously, there's a lot of good charities out there, and I do want your good money to go to those good charities who don't stick it in their pocket first. So what I'm asking the viewers to do is to go out and find charities that are worthwhile and then support them directly. Don't do it to the unknown charity. I don't want, I really can't recommend charities, but there are many that will use your donation and use it responsibly. And they generally don't use the telephone to solicit your donation. You know, there's a number of programs, certainly everybody's aware of the Fisher House. They do a wonderful program right down here in West Roxbury.
Yes, they do.
Where they house the families of veterans while they're undergoing all sorts of treatments. There's the Wounded Warriors program that everybody's been familiar with. And there's also the Massachusetts Military Relief Fund. Now, every year we do our Massachusetts income tax return. There's a question, and the question is 32E, and there you can make a donation. And that's an excellent charity as well. You know, it's you know, the Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts watches them. You know, and I think 90% of the monies that go to them go out in services, not in salaries, not in bonuses, but in services. So it's a great charity. So do some digging, find the charities that you like, and then support them directly.
There's one in particular called the Navy Fund for Widow and Orphans, and that's an excellent one, really. How do we do to get that kind of information?
Well, you know, and the other place where you can get information, we've talked about them before, is the Attorney General's office. So if I can, you know, if they're on the internet, it's a good place to go. It's www.charities.ago.state.ma.us. And really what it is the Attorney General's website, and they have all sorts of information about charities, about their filings. Mostly, if you look at them, you can see how they're spending their money. And if you don't have the internet, you can give them a call. And the Attorney General's number is 617-963-2315. And I think they're good people to call, you know, or to get information about charities.
You know, the charities are very important in one respect, but as long as the veteran knows of what you've named, they're good ones. You know, there's one in particular that we have done programming on here. It's called Needs, with the dogs.
Right, I'm very familiar with Needs.
And that's a beautiful charity. And we had quite a session right here at the anchor desk about Needs. And I've been out there and watched what they do, and it's
right.
Something
That's right here in Massachusetts. It's out in Sterling, Mass.
That's right.
And when you go out to Sterling, Mass, and you drive into the building, it's the Harry Mitchell Way.
Yeah, good
named
Harry.
after our own Harry Mitchell, who's been
He's passed away.
He's passed away, but he's lived here in town, and
for a long time.
His name is well preserved up there.
It certainly is, and well thought of. Well, I see that old clock on the wall. About time to wrap this up. And how about if you just want to report a problem?
Well, with the Attorney General, if you think that you've been any kind of situation where you think you're being approached nastily by some charity, and I don't care if they're in the front of a shopping center or calling you on the phone, if you can find out who they are, report them to the Attorney General. And again, it's the same phone number. It's 617-963-2315. And I talked to some of the people at the Attorney General's office, and they just say, you know, people just don't take the time to call to make the complaint, because they want these people to cease too, I think.
You know, Ron, this has been a good session this evening relative to the veteran. So important. You covered some very, very good entities which are very important to the veteran. 3 things I'd like to ask you. Number 1, the breakfast, what time and where?
It's going to be at 8:30 in the morning. It's going to be at the Senior Center, or the Center. That's on 1 Ice House Road. And it's going to be on Veterans Day, November 11th, Monday.
Number 2, to get in contact with you with problems, not only the veteran, but the widower. How do they get in contact with you and make an appointment?
Well, I'm at the office Monday and Thursday afternoons from 1 to 4. My phone number is 508-906-3025. And please call, leave a message. We'll get together. You know, if you want to walk in, that's fine with me. You know, the only problem with walk-ins is if somebody just walked in ahead of you, you know, then you have to wait. But, you know, it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And then, of course, email is a good way to contact me. And my email address is rgriffin, Griffin, @medfield.net.
One other question. Suppose we've got a housebound veteran that wants to talk to the service officer.
Anybody that can't get to me, I go to them.
The most important thing to a veteran or the widow is talk to your service officer first. Don't decide that you're going to tackle that paperwork. Let him advise you. Now, number one, the breakfast on Veterans Day. That's quite a day. That's in commemoration of men that have fought and women that have fought for this country. A lot of them have died for this country. So remember the veteran. He's a part of freedom. And he's part that kept you free. In closing, Ron, is there anything that you'd like to add before we say goodnight?
I think you said it all for me. Thank you very much. I hope to see everybody at the breakfast. I hope to see a good turnout at the Baxter Park at 5 p.m. on Veterans Day, too.
That's important, just to come to Baxter Park. And there's going to be, I understand, lighting. Ron's going to be talking a bit, I'm sure. And remember, that's one of the most important things. Thomas Jefferson once made a statement, Ron, that freedom is a costly word, and it will continue as it is in time. And to reiterate a point, men and women have fought for freedom. A lot of them have died for them. And a lot of them now are veterans that have been a part of actions that words cannot express. The tragedies, the violence, and the situations that have surrounded them. Ron, I want to thank you.
Thank you. And again, just to follow up on your words, I'd like to talk about, I remember Marshall Chick, the Veteran Service Officer before me, he was always repeating, you have to remember that freedom is not free.
Agreed, it's not. This is Jack Peterson wishing you and yours the very best. Good night.
This program was made possible through the generous support of your Medfield friends and neighbors, folks just like you. And thanks for watching.